Hello, friends. Today we will take our acceptance series one step ahead and discuss a very important area where almost everybody gets confused, even corporate lawyers. And the topic is, when is acceptance complete? Now, imagine that I make you an offer saying that I want to sell my iPhone to you at rupees 50,000, and I send you this offer via a letter. I send you a letter by post. And I tell you that if you want to buy my iPhone, you reply to my letter via post only. So you also send me a letter saying that you accept my offer. This is how I want your acceptance. Okay? You are also fine with my offer and you are okay with the price. So you decide to accept my offer and you send me your acceptance letter. So you post your acceptance letter, let's say in the post office. However, the moment you come back to your home and you open Flipkart, you see that there is a better deal on the latest iPhone. I offered to sell you my iPhone at 50,000 rupees. You found a deal on the latest iPhone and the deal is better than what I offered you. So you are getting the latest iPhone for just 40,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees lesser than what I offered you. Okay? Question is, after you sent me your acceptance by post, after you posted your acceptance letter, can you now cancel your acceptance? Or is the agreement complete the moment you posted your acceptance? This is what we are going to discuss today. And let me tell you right away that there is a very strange provision in the Indian Contract Act. And the provision, and as per the provision, the moment you dropped your acceptance letter in the post office, the offerer, that is me, the one who is offering to sell his iPhone, the offerer is logged in, which means that the moment you posted your acceptance in the post office, the offerer is bound by his offer. Now the offerer cannot sell that iPhone to anyone else. But interestingly, you as the offeree are still free to cancel your acceptance. You can still cancel your acceptance, and we will look at the manner in which you can cancel. Okay. So, on one hand, we see that the offerer becomes bound the moment the offeree posts his acceptance, but the offeree is still free to cancel his acceptance. Now, this is what makes this provision of Indian Contracts Act extremely unique and quite interesting. And when I was preparing for CLAT, I realized that this time gap is where the best legal minds win. People who understand this concept of when is an acceptance complete in cases where acceptance is sent by post. Only those people who have a good understanding and a proper understanding of this area of law are able to solve problems vis-a-vis this area of law. And today I will show you how to master the postal rule of acceptance and why your choice between a letter and a WhatsApp message changes everything. Let's decode it. However, before we start today's topic, let us do a quick recap of what we have studied so far in acceptance. So we saw that acceptance is when, what is an acceptance? That is the first thing which we discussed. Acceptance is when the offeree agrees to the offer. Then we saw that acceptance must be absolute and unqualified. We also discussed that what happens when the offeree introduces a new term in the offer. So basically, instead of conveying an absolute and unqualified acceptance, the offeree introduces a new term in the offer. And what happens in that scenario? We discussed it in detail. And this is called a counter offer. And a counter offer kills the original offer. After that, we discussed that acceptance must be communicated. Mere mental intent to accept is not a valid acceptance. Then we also talked about to whom and by whom should the acceptance be communicated. And lastly, we talked about mode of acceptance, where we saw that it is the offerer's discretion or choice as to the mode of acceptance that the offerer prefers. So basically, offerer can prescribe a particular mode of acceptance, and the offeree has to communicate his or her acceptance in that mode only. And we saw one interesting provision in the Indian Contract Act, which is a deviation from this rule. And what was that? Even if the offerer has prescribed a particular condition or a particular mode of acceptance in the offer, and yet the offeree does not communicate his or her acceptance in that particular mode, still that acceptance does not become invalid automatically. The burden is on the offerer to raise an objection to that mode of communication, which is different from what the offerer had prescribed. And if the offerer doesn't raise an objection within a reasonable time, then the acceptance, even if it is given in a different mode, is a valid acceptance. Now today we will move one step further and understand when is acceptance complete. And we will look at two scenarios. One, when parties are communicating simultaneously, meaning at the same time. To simplify it further, offerer and offeree are communicating, meaning offerer is making an offer and the offeree is replying to that offer in real time. There is no time gap in the communication between the offerer and the offeree. That is what we mean by simultaneous communication. Example: offerer and offeree are talking in person. You go to a bookshop, you make an offer to the shopkeeper that I want to buy this book at this price, and the shopkeeper immediately replies to your offer. Both you and the shopkeeper are talking in person. So the communications are simultaneous. There is no time gap. Okay. Similarly, when the offerer and offeree are communicating on phone, on telephone, then also there is no time gap. Both offerer and the offeree are communicating simultaneously. If I call you and tell you I want to sell my iPhone to you at rupees 50,000, will you buy it? Then your response is instantaneous. You do not, there's no time gap between when I say something and when you respond to that statement. You also reply immediately on telephone. So that is the first category. Second category is when the communication between the offerer and offeree is not instantaneous, okay, or simultaneous. When can this happen? Example: A makes an offer to B by post, meaning A has sent a letter to B. Now, when you send a letter to someone, you would know that firstly, you would have to go to the post office. Then the post office will take their own sweet time, okay, to deliver your letter. Once your letter reaches B or the offeree may also take his or her own sweet time to open the letter and read it. And after that, the offeree will may or may not reply to your offer. So the communication here is not instantaneous. It is not happening in real time. There is a time gap. And that is what this second situation talks about. Okay. So we will firstly discuss this second situation. Why? Because when the Indian Contract Act was drafted in 1872, Indian Contract Act is of 1872. At that point of time, we did not have telephone, we did not have WhatsApp. So the instantaneous modes of communication were limited. And therefore, Indian Contract Act talks about a rule which is known as Postal Rule of Acceptance. Because at that point of time, we had post letters. And as I said, we did not have telephones or WhatsApp messages at that point of time. Okay. So this is our scenario 2. When the communication is not instantaneous. Let's say NLSIU sends you a letter saying you have been selected for BA course. If you wish to enroll, then please send your acceptance by a return letter. So pay close attention to the mode of communication here. NLSIU has sent you a letter. It means that the moment somebody has sent something by letter, one thing should come to your mind immediately, which is that the communication in this case is not instantaneous. It is not happening in real time. And therefore, we're talking about scenario 2. And what happens in scenario 2 when there is a time gap? The law says that if the offeree accepts the offer the agreement is complete as soon as the letter of acceptance is posted. It simply means that in case the offeree has accepted the offer, the acceptance will be complete the moment the offeree posts his letter. So in this example, the NLSIU example, let's say you wish to study at NLSIU and you want to accept their offer. So the moment you send your response via post, the moment you post your letter in the post office, this agreement is complete, which means that it will be deemed that your acceptance, you have given a valid acceptance. So all of us know that for an agreement, we need offer and acceptance. Forget about consideration for now. NLSIU made you an offer. You confirmed, you accepted. This rule says that the postal rule that we just discussed, it says that the moment you posted your acceptance letter, your acceptance is complete. Okay, it means that we have both offer and acceptance complete here. When both offer and acceptance exist, then we have a valid agreement. Okay, so but one thing must be but you must be thinking about one interesting situation here, which is that let's say NLSIU's letter was received by you on 11th January. Okay, you confirmed your acceptance by posting your letter on 13th January. Your letter reached NLSIU on 15th January. Now you must be thinking that even though you posted your letter on 13th January, it reached NLSIU only on 15th January, which means that NLSIU got to know about your acceptance only on 15th January, not before that. So what if NLSIU changes its mind before they receive your letter of acceptance? Because logically thinking, just think like this. An offerer is usually free to change his mind before the acceptance is received by him. A simple example, you go to the market, you want to buy potatoes, you ask the shopkeeper, will you sell me these potatoes for rupees 10? Shopkeeper doesn't reply for the next 10 minutes. You find another shopkeeper who is willing to sell you those potatoes for rupees 10 and you finalize a deal with the other shopkeeper. Now, after 10 minutes, once the first shopkeeper comes back to you and tells you, I accept your offer, you can always say that now that offer no longer exists because you did not communicate your acceptance to me in a reasonable time. Now I have already purchased these potatoes at a different shop. Okay, so the offerer is usually free to cancel the offer. Okay, until what time can an offerer cancel the offer? Before the acceptance reaches him. So one thing we all know, an offerer can cancel his offer before the communication of acceptance. It simply means that till the time the offerer has not received the acceptance, an offerer is free to change his mind. Coming back to our NLSIU question, when did NLSIU get to know about your acceptance? They got to know about it only on 15th Jan. What if NLSIU change their mind on 14th Jan? You posted your letter on 13th Jan. NLSIU received it on 15th Jan. If they, logically speaking, NLSIU should be free to change their mind anytime before they have received your acceptance. That is what logic says. But Indian Contract Act says, hold on. We are talking about the Postal Rule of Acceptance. And Postal Rule of Acceptance says something which is contrary to our logic. Postal Rule of Acceptance says that when parties are communicating via post, and you can include all forms of communications which are not instantaneous. Scenario 2 that we are talking about, communications which are not instantaneous, then the acceptance becomes complete the moment when the acceptance is posted. So Indian Contract Act clearly says that the moment acceptance is posted, this acceptance is complete. Now apply that to NLSIU example. You posted your letter on 13th January. As per this provision, acceptance is complete on 13th January itself. So even if your letter reached NLS on 15th Jan, they cannot cancel their offer after you have posted your letter. The deal is finalized the moment you posted your letter. That is the postal rule of communication, and that is why it is so tricky. But just keep this in your mind: when parties are communicating via post, or when the communication is not instantaneous, then acceptance is complete the moment the offeree posts his acceptance. That is it. Okay, now we have two things to note down in this scenario. Acceptance is complete the moment it is posted by the offeree, which means that offerer cannot cancel or change the terms of the offer after the acceptance is posted by the offeree, which means that the offerer gets logged in the moment acceptance is posted. Okay. Third thing, if I ask you, where does this agreement arise? So my question is regarding the place or jurisdiction. If I ask you, where does this agreement arise? In a normal scenario, let's take the book example. You go to a bookshop, you make an offer to purchase a book, and the shopkeeper is also willing to accept your offer. This agreement arises at the place where the shopkeeper and you are communicating with each other. Okay. Let's say you are in New Delhi and this is happening in New Delhi. Then the place of agreement is New Delhi. But when we are talking about postal rule, one party, NLSIU, is in Bangalore, you are in New Delhi. NLSIU made you an offer from Bangalore, you posted your acceptance in New Delhi. Where does this agreement arise? NLSIU posted their offer or made an offer. NLSIU made their offer from Bangalore. You posted your acceptance at Delhi. Where does the agreement arise? What is the jurisdiction? And why is it important? Because you will see later that it is very important to know the place of the agreement, because in case this agreement is breached and one party wants to sue the other party, then they will have to approach a court, right? And you will see later that only the court which has jurisdiction over the particular matter can entertain a can entertain that suit. So when you have to decide, so let's say when an agreement is breached, the first question that will come to your mind is, which court should I go to? If an agreement has been formed in New Delhi, you cannot go to New York, or you cannot go to Bangalore or Mumbai. You will have to go to the relevant court in New Delhi. That is why place of the agreement is very important. And for the purpose of CLAT also, you should be absolutely clear with the concept of jurisdiction. Okay, and that is what we are discussing today. So in a postal rule scenario, in case of postal communications, where does the agreement arise? Law says it is, place of jurisdiction is where the acceptance is posted. Okay, it is as simple as that. So in our case, it will be Delhi, because you posted your letter of acceptance at Delhi. And please pay very close attention. Many people get confused and they say that this agreement has been made at Bangalore because NLSIU made an offer from Bangalore. But this is wrong. This agreement has been formed in Delhi because the rule says the jurisdiction will be that place where the acceptance is posted. And also, I will repeat once again, all these things that we are talking about is in relation to scenario 2, that is when parties are communicating via post or when the communication is not instantaneous. Okay, so we've looked at 3 scenarios. Now the most interesting part, we saw that Acceptance is complete when the moment the acceptance is posted, which means that now the offerer is logged in. He cannot cancel or change the terms of the offer. But then one thing may come to your mind again. You posted your letter on 13th January saying I accept NLSIU's offer and I want to enroll for this particular course. You posted your letter on 13th Jan. But on 14th January, you receive an offer from Oxford University for the same BA LLB course. And Oxford University is your dream university. You have always wanted to study at Oxford. But now you are in trouble because you have already posted your letter of acceptance on 13th Jan saying that you are taking the seat at NLSIU and you received this Oxford offer one day later. Now, what should you do? We discussed that the moment acceptance is posted, then we have an agreement and the offerer gets logged in. Now, the offer cannot be changed. But interestingly, the law gives the offeree a way out of this scenario, and which is very, very interesting and very, very unique. Okay, and let's understand why. We saw that when acceptance is posted, offerer gets logged. He cannot change the offer or he cannot cancel the offer. But what happens to the offeree? Question is, does the offeree also get bound by the acceptance? If you apply common sense and logic, you would say yes, because if you are telling me that there is offer, there is acceptance, it means we have an agreement. Once there is an agreement, both the parties are bound. Then offeree should also be bound by his acceptance. But Indian Contract Act says that in Postal Rule, offeree will be bound by his acceptance only when the acceptance reaches the offeree. It means that when you posted your letter on 13th Jan and it reached NLSIU on 15th Jan, as per this rule, you will be bound by your acceptance only on 15th Jan when NLSIU has actually received your acceptance, which means that before 15th Jan, you are free to cancel your acceptance. Before 15th Jan, you can cancel your acceptance. Cancel / revoke your acceptance. So let's say when you received this offer from Oxford on 14th Jan, the same day you fly to Bangalore and you go to NLSIU and you tell them that I do not wish to enroll for this course, I reject your offer, I do not accept your offer. If you say that on 14th Jan, then it will be considered that there is no valid acceptance even if your letter reaches them on 15th Jan. So in this scenario, what you did was 13th Jan you posted your Or let's do one thing. Let's summarize this example and then conclude the discussion. Okay. So NLSIU made you an offer. Offeree received. You received the offer on 11th January. You, the offeree, posted your acceptance on 13th January. On 13th January, the moment you posted your acceptance, offerer NLSIU gets logged, which means that the offerer is bound by your acceptance. On 13th January itself, on 14th January, you received an offer from Oxford University. Same day, 14th Jan, you fly to Bangalore and reject NLSIU's offer. So it is rejected on 14th Jan. The moment it is rejected, there is no agreement because we don't have acceptance. 15th January, your letter which was posted on 13th January reaches NLSIU. This letter has no relevance now. Okay, which means that an offeree is free to cancel his acceptance before the acceptance reaches the offerer. Of course, the offeree will have to choose a faster mode of communication. When you sent the initial acceptance by way of post, you knew that if I wanted to, if I have to reject this offer, I will have to choose a faster mode of communication. That is why you took a flight and you reached Bangalore the same day. Okay. So this is the postal rule. So we looked at all the elements with respect to postal rule, and we've introduced not all, if I can say, because there are still a few things that we need to discuss about the postal rule, and this is the most technical portion of Indian Contracts Act. So I would leave you at that. And if you remember, we started with two scenarios, 1 and 2. Okay, and we are currently discussing this one, the postal rule. All right. So I would want you to understand this and grasp all the concepts associated with the postal rule, especially vis-a-vis when is the acceptance complete, at which location is the agreement concluded, does the offeree have an opportunity to cancel or revoke his acceptance, especially vis-a-vis these three elements. I would like you to spend some time and understand these concepts, because tomorrow we will look at this area. And what happens in case of a WhatsApp message? What happens in case when an offer is made on telephone? Because today we saw that the offeree has an opportunity to revoke his acceptance. But think of a scenario where NLSIU has sent you their offer via email. Okay, they sent you an email in the afternoon. You reply the same day on their email. However, your email does not reach NLSIU because of an internet issue. So from your side, you have posted your acceptance via email, but your email could not get delivered to NLSIU due to a technical issue at the end of Gmail. Okay. Question is, what happens to this kind of arrangement? If you apply the postal rule, then you will say that the moment acceptance is posted, the offerer is bound. So NLSIU should be bound if you apply the postal rule. But understand this, are emails instantaneous modes? Are emails and a form of instantaneous mode of communication? The answer is yes. One party sends an email and the other party can immediately reply to that, so that there is no time gap. Okay. So what will happen in that scenario is something that we will discuss tomorrow. But to understand tomorrow's discussion, you will have to understand today's discussion properly. Okay. So, all right, revise this. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment, and I will definitely reply to your questions or doubts. Thank you so much.